I stood at the gate of my husband's family house, rain soaking through my thin maternity dress, one hand clutching my swollen belly, the other wiping my face, though I couldn't tell if it was tears or the rain I was brushing away. Behind me, my sister-in-law, Angela, was yelling for the gateman to lock the gate and never let that shameless woman back in. Shameless woman. That's what she called me. Me, the wife her brother legally married, the one carrying the first grandchild of the family. I turned to look at her one last time before the gate slammed. And in that moment, I promised myself, if life ever turns in my favor, Angela will taste the kind of pain she served me today. When I first met Raymond, he was nothing like the man I know now. He was gentle, ambitious, and always spoke about building a life away from the shadow of his controlling sister. I was 21 then, fresh out of Polytechnic, working as a salesgirl in a small boutique. Raymond was a junior manager in a logistics company, still struggling but proud of his independence. We dated for a year before he proposed. My parents didn't have much, just a two-bedroom apartment and a food stall my mother ran to keep the family afloat. But they were happy I had found a man who seemed to truly love me. Raymond's parents were late, so his only close family was Angela, his older sister. She was in her mid-30s, unmarried, and had built a small but profitable interior decor business. She liked to remind everyone that she made Raymond who he is because she had paid part of his university fees after their parents died. From the very first day I met Angela, I knew she didn't like me. She didn't even pretend. She asked about my family background in a way that wasn't curiosity, but judgment. When she found out my father was a retired driver and my mother a food vendor, her smile thinned. I overheard her telling Raymond later that night, "This is the kind of woman who will come here to eat and drag your progress backwards." Raymond defended me then, at least in the beginning. After our small church wedding, we moved into one of Angela's properties, a 3-bedroom bungalow she graciously offered us. She said it was to help us save money, but it didn't take long before I realized it was just a way for her to control every aspect of our lives. She had a key to our home. She would walk in unannounced, criticize my cooking, mock my clothes, and once even threw away a pot of soup I made, saying it smelled poor. I tried to endure it because Raymond kept insisting that's just how she is. But things got worse when I became pregnant. Instead of joy, Angela reacted with suspicion. She accused me of trapping her brother with a baby before he could upgrade his life. The day she said that, I felt something inside me break. I started keeping to myself, avoiding her whenever I could. But Angela wasn't the type you could avoid for long. It was a Saturday morning, my 6th month of pregnancy. Raymond had traveled for a work training, leaving me alone in the house. I was in the kitchen, boiling yam when Angela walked in. She was holding a file, her expression cold and sharp. Without greeting, she dropped the file on the table. Inside were receipts and bills, all the money she had ever spent on Raymond's education and rent. "I've decided I want my brother out of my property," she said flatly, "and you can go with him, or you can go now. Your choice." I thought she was bluffing, but she wasn't. She had already instructed the gateman to throw my things outside. I begged her to at least let me wait until Raymond returned, but she spat on the ground and said, "Pregnant or not, you will not squat here and feed off me like a leech." When I tried to hold the door, she slapped me so hard my ears rang. The next thing I knew, the gateman was carrying my bags out. And just like that, I was standing in the rain with nowhere to go. As the gate closed on me, I looked up at the dark sky and swore, one day I would make Angela beg for the kind of mercy she refused me. The rain didn't stop that night. I walked for almost an hour before I reached a bus stop, my luggage dragging through puddles, my slippers soaked and cutting into my feet. People stared, some with pity, others with the kind of curiosity you give to roadside drama. But no one asked if I needed help. I sat on a cold bench under the shelter of a kiosk, hugging my belly as the child inside kicked gently, as if reminding me I wasn't completely alone. I tried calling Raymond. The phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again. The fourth time, it didn't even connect. It was as though my husband had vanished the moment I needed him most. By 11 p.m., the streets had thinned. The kiosk owner, a middle-aged woman selling cigarettes and recharge cards, took one look at my swollen belly and asked, "You know, get house?" I told her I did, but it wasn't mine anymore. She shook her head, muttering something about how family walla is the worst kind. She let me sleep on a wooden bench inside her stall that night. The next morning, I tried calling Raymond again. This time he answered, but his voice was sharp, defensive. "Why are you calling me like this? Angela already told me what happened." My voice broke. "Raymond!" She threw me out in the rain. "She slapped me." He cut me off. "You brought it on yourself. You've been disrespecting her since we moved there. If you can't live in peace with my sister, maybe you shouldn't be in my life at all." I froze. "Raymond, are you saying I should leave you?" "I'm saying I can't be with a woman who can't respect the person who raised me." And that was it. No promise to come for me, no offer to take me somewhere safe. Just silence on the other end. And then the line went dead. I sat there, phone in my hand, tears running down my face, my unborn child pressing against my ribs as though feeling my pain. That was the moment I knew I was truly on my own. For the next 3 weeks, I lived like a shadow. The kiosk owner, whose name was Grace, let me stay in her tiny back room for a few nights, but she had a teenage son who needed the space. I moved from church halls to friends' couches, careful never to overstay my welcome. I started selling sachet water on the streets with money Grace lent me. I'd wake before sunrise, tie a scarf over my head, and carry the cold, dripping bags of water on my head. My ankles swelled, my back ached, but I kept moving. Every step I took was a vow. I will not die here. It wasn't just survival. It was defiance. One late afternoon, as I was closing for the day, I stopped by the market to buy bread. I bumped into an old secondary school friend, Melissa. She was dressed smartly, carrying a designer bag, and she stared at me for a long moment before asking, "Sarah, is this you?" I laughed bitterly. What's left of me, yes. We went to a small roadside food joint, and over plates of jollof rice, I told her everything, from Angela's constant insults to the night she threw me out. Melissa listened quietly, her face unreadable. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Sarah, you're wasting your pain. If I were you, I'd use this as fuel. Life owes you nothing, but Angela, she owes you everything you lost, with interest." That night, she took me to her small apartment in town and told me I could stay until I found my footing. She also mentioned that the company she worked for, a catering and events business, needed extra staff. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and I could save little by little. Working at the catering company changed something in me. I saw wealth up close, the kind of wealth that Angela flaunted but didn't truly belong to her. We served at weddings, political meetings, private birthday parties for people who didn't even know how much bread cost. I started listening more than I spoke, learning how the rich moved, who they trusted, and where they kept their vulnerabilities. One evening, while scrolling through Melissa's phone, I saw a familiar face on Instagram. Angela. She had posted pictures from a lavish interior decor contract she'd just secured. In the caption, she boasted about landing the biggest deal of her career. But what caught my attention wasn't her. It was the man in the background of one of the photos. He was a client we had just catered for the week before. A man with deep pockets and a reputation for being generous to women who entertained him. I smiled to myself for the first time in weeks. The universe had just given me my opening. For weeks, I couldn't stop staring at that Instagram post. Angela, standing in her elegant white jumpsuit, posing in a luxury living room she had just decorated. And there, in the blurred background, sat the man I recognized from our catering gig, Mr. Leonard Williams, a property magnate with a smile as polished as the marble floors in his mansion. Melissa noticed the way I kept going back to that photo. "What's in your head, Sarah?" she asked one night. "Opportunity," I said simply. I knew Angela's business revolved around networking. She thrived on referrals, partnerships, and showcasing herself at elite events. If I wanted to get close enough to hurt her, I had to slip into that same circle without her noticing. Through Melissa's connections in the catering company, I volunteered for every high-profile event I could. I served champagne to oil tycoons, laid dinner plates for bank executives, and memorized faces, names, and habits. I started to notice patterns: who liked to talk too much after a few glasses of wine, who was secretly sleeping with whose wife, who owed who money. At a real estate gala, I finally saw him again, Mr. Leonard Williams. This time, I made sure I was the one serving him. I smiled when he made small talk, laughed lightly at his jokes, and let my hand brush his by accident when I poured his drink. I wasn't trying to seduce him, not yet, but I needed him to remember my face. 2 weeks later, Melissa told me our company had been booked for an exclusive private dinner at Leonard's penthouse. I made sure I was on the serving team. When he saw me, his eyes lit with recognition. "Ah, you again," he said, that smooth voice dripping with wealth. "Yes, sir." I smiled politely. "I work for the catering company." During the evening, I overheard snippets of conversation between him and a guest talk of a new luxury estate project. That was when I dropped my first calculated bait. While clearing plates, I quietly said, "Sir, if you ever need an interior designer who understands what elite clients want, I know someone who is unmatched in her field." He raised an eyebrow. "Who?" I smiled faintly. Angela Daniels." He chuckled. "Oh, I've heard of her. We've met briefly." I acted surprised, as though it was just a passing comment. But I knew exactly what I was doing, planting a name in the mind of a man whose contracts could make or break a career. 3 weeks later, Angela posted about a promising new client who had invited her to pitch for a massive penthouse redesign. I didn't need to ask who it was. I had created the introduction without her even realizing it. This was my advantage. She didn't know I was in the room where her deals began. From Melissa, I learned more about Angela's life than I ever knew when I was her sister-in-law. Her business, though glamorous on Instagram, was bleeding money. She was in debt to 2 suppliers, and her last 3 projects had gone over budget. She needed Leonard's contract like oxygen. The next step was riskier. I needed to be close enough to watch her every move without making her suspicious. I got my chance when Leonard hired our company again for a private wine tasting. Angela was there, all smiles, pitching her ideas to him. I played my role as the quiet, invisible server, but I made sure she saw me. Her eyes narrowed. "You," she said quietly as I poured her glass. "I thought I told Raymond to keep you far from my life." I lowered my voice. "Don't worry, I'm just doing my job. I have no interest in you or your world." Then I walked away, letting her think I was harmless. That night, Leonard called me over after the event. "So, how do you know Angela again?" he asked. "She's family," I said carefully. "Was family." He smiled knowingly. "Interesting." Over the next month, Leonard began calling me for small, non-work-related errands, recommending caterers, finding rare wine, connecting him with Melissa for her event contacts. I became someone he trusted to get things done quietly, and that trust gave me information Angela would never willingly give me herself. I learned she had already invested personal funds into the penthouse redesign before the contract was even signed, a dangerous gamble. If Leonard backed out, she'd be in serious trouble. That's when I knew how I'd break her. Melissa helped me put together a flawless plan. I fed Leonard's subtle doubts about Angela's professionalism. Nothing direct, just small seeds. She's brilliant, but she's been so busy lately. I hope she doesn't overbook herself. I heard she's managing 3 projects at once. Must be exhausting. Meanwhile, I started working extra shifts, saving every naira I could. Not for myself, but for the one thing that would seal Angela's downfall, taking the contract from her at the last moment and handing it to someone else entirely. By the time the opportunity came, I would be ready. The weeks that followed felt like the quiet before a storm. On the surface, everything was smooth. Angela was still boasting on Instagram about her prestigious penthouse project, posting mood boards, samples, and expensive furniture orders she hadn't even paid for yet. But behind the scenes, the ground beneath her was already cracking. I kept my moves slow, patient, almost surgical. Every step had to be perfect, not just to hurt her, but to make sure she never recovered from it. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Leonard called me and asked if I could stop by his office. When I arrived, he leaned back in his leather chair, fingers tapping his desk. "I'm starting to feel like Angela might not be the right fit," he said casually. I tilted my head. "Why do you say that?" "She's been late to 2 meetings, her budget keeps changing, and, well, you know how I like things discreet. She's been name-dropping me to other clients." I didn't react too quickly. If you're unsure, maybe it's best to consider someone who works quietly, someone who won't make your business public. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Do you know anyone like that?" I had been waiting for that question for months. Melissa had already introduced me to a friend in the same interior design field, a woman named Claire, polished, professional, and hungry for a big break. I connected Leonard to her immediately, framing it as a backup option in case Angela slipped again. Within a week, Leonard canceled Angela's contract. Just like that. The phone calls started that night, not to me, but to Melissa. Angela was fuming, saying Leonard had betrayed her, that someone must have poisoned his mind. She had no idea it was me. Canceling the contract was bad enough, but the way I orchestrated the rest was worse. Remember those suppliers she owed? I made sure they knew her biggest project had fallen through. I accidentally let slip to one of them that she had already spent advance payments on luxury items for herself. Word spread fast. Within 2 weeks, one supplier sued her for breach of contract. Another repossessed furniture from her showroom. Her largest client demanded a refund she couldn't pay. Her once perfect Instagram feed went silent. The final blow came at a charity gala, an event Angela had been planning to attend for months to network with high net worth individuals. Leonard was one of the main sponsors. I was there too, working with the catering team as usual, blending into the background. Halfway through the night, Leonard took the stage to announce a special appreciation for Claire. Yes, the same Claire I had introduced, praising her work on his penthouse and calling her the most efficient designer I've ever worked with. The cameras flashed. People clapped. Claire smiled modestly. And Angela? She was standing just a few feet away, her smile frozen, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. She knew. She didn't know how, but she knew someone had stolen what she thought was hers, and I was close enough to see her jaw tighten when our eyes met. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see me, to remember the night she threw me out in the rain, pregnant and broken. That night, I left the event early and went home. Waiting on my phone was a voice note from Angela. Her voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable. "I don't know how you did it, Sarah, but you've destroyed me. Are you happy now?" I played it twice, then replied with a short message. "Pregnant or not, you threw me out like garbage. Now you know how it feels to lose everything you built. That's not revenge, Angela. That's justice." Months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Melissa stood by me through every step, and I slowly built my own small business. Nothing glamorous but mine. I never saw Raymond again. Rumor had it he moved to another city after Angela's downfall, too ashamed to face anyone. As for Angela, she downsized her business, sold her car, and quietly left social media. I didn't care where she went. She could run as far as she liked. The important thing was that she'd never forget the day she learned that the poor, humiliated wife she had kicked out was the same woman who ended her reign. Because sometimes the sweetest payback isn't loud. It's watching from the shadows as your enemy falls, knowing you were the one who pulled the strings. Life has a way of turning tables when you least expect it. Her story reminds us that even the most broken moments can be the start of something powerful. But what do you think? Was her payback fair, or did she go too far? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story and want more gripping, emotional tales like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new one.